Hi, everyone. This is Christina Barr, and you're watching Black Tea News. Hi, everyone. This is Christina Barr, and you're watching Black Tea News. And today, there's so many things I really want to get to today, but I just do not have time. So some of these things are going to be touched upon, I guess, in greater detail throughout the week. Of course, there's still things I want to talk about with Biden's absurd mandates and how just really a lot of it just it doesn't make any sort of sense at all. But I'm not going to touch on that too much today. But Larry Elder, there's some crazy stuff. Of course, he's running for governor of California, and there were some stories, reports that came out. People going to go vote, and then the machines were like, "No, you already voted." And I don't know if it was only exclusively happening to Republicans, but definitely Republicans were trying to vote, and the machine said that they had already voted. And considering all the contention that happened with the 2020 election, these sort of shenanigans are unacceptable, and whether it is maliciously done or accidentally done, it's still unacceptable regardless. So I'm going to play a bit of that news story and just talk a little bit about the Larry Elder race in California. Godspeed to him. Also want to talk about the last thing that had happened in Afghanistan. We did this drone strike that they said was supposed to be retaliation for like ISIS-K, because they suspected that they were going to attack again after we had the bombing at the airport that killed 13 service members. It killed civilians, and they tried to say that some of the military tried to say that civilians were killed after, like, there was an aftershock or second shock from the bombs are in the car. New York Times did a really good piece. I know we all don't really love the New York Times, but they did a good piece tracking the story down, and there doesn't appear to have been a second bombing or a second explosion from bombs in the car, but rather the car was on fire from a Hellfire missile, and it killed civilians and apparently no ISIS people at all. So we're going to be talking about that. We're also going to be talking about just the insanity with the abortion bill in Texas, or the 6-week ban, or the heartbeat ban rather. I guess because technically you might, at your 6-week, the doctors have to see if there's a heartbeat, and if there's a heartbeat, then you cannot abort it. So it's not technically a 6-week ban. It's just that you have to do something at 6 weeks, and if it is there, then you cannot abort it at that point. People are having big reactions to George W. Bush's speech at the 9/11 ceremony with him. He was there. The Clintons, the Obamas, everyone was like, "Where's Trump?" Trump had his own thing. He went to the first responders in New York, and so he kind of showed him up, in my opinion. And Bush said, I guess, a decent speech, but people are talking about it. The left is talking about it because they feel like he's dissing the people who went to the Capitol, and is comparing them to terrorists and talking about domestic terrorism. And it is really broad, and you could definitely apply that to BLM and Antifa and all those folks. But the left is certainly taking it a particular way. So there's people on the right who are very frustrated with George W. Bush. I listened to Ben Shapiro's show a little bit today, and that was like the main focus of the show. I might have listened to like 40 minutes of it, and it was like all about this particular topic. Because Bush, I won't say like a peep about things that obviously were against policy. He did, like, where's the condemnation for how he pulled out of Afghanistan? But he is willing to say things that kind of ding at the right a bit. So some people are frustrated about that. And then another thing I just want to point to that I'll probably talk about tomorrow is there was a fighter who is a biological male who beat up on a biological female, and I don't know how much of this are going to take from men who get away being abusive to women. What is wrong with our society? That we keep allowing this to happen? Men are different than women. They always have been, always will be, and It's not accept if you identify as a female, that's one thing, but that's no reason why you have to go and enter into a woman's sport and then beat the crap out of her. That's not acceptable. Shouldn't be acceptable. But before we jump into the headlines, I want to thank Brighter Michigan Pack. I'm in their studio. As always, they do not care what I say. I'm not going to say they don't care what I say, but if I trigger you, that is between you and Jesus. They don't care. I don't care. You can't get me fired. That's not how it works. I'm just in the studio. I appreciate them allowing me to do so. Please visit blacktnews.com. Check out my website, and please share articles that I've written, other content that I have. You can check out where I am on all the socials. I'm on Facebook, YouTube, which you may be watching me right now from either of those applications. I'm on TikTok. I have my main account and a backup account that I'm posting on right now. So all those social media handles and my Instagram are all at Black T News, and on Twitter I am at True Black T, and on my backup TikTok account it's also at True Black T, and that is black like the color and tea like the drink, the logo with the teacup you can see. And please check out different merchandise that I have on the website. Pick out something that you guys will love, like I'm not the victim you're looking for, stuff with Black T on it, Be Better Not Better, got some good stuff with Frederick Douglass, You Are Not That Special, love that one. So check out different merchandise I have, and if you would like to support blacktnews.com, please go to the website blacktnews.com/donate, and you can leave a gift. That is your call to action. If you appreciate what I'm doing here, please support the show. Before it was just PayPal options, but there is options just to enter in just a credit card account without having to, credit card information without making an account. So if you would like to do that, that option is available. Thank you to people who pointed it out and wanted a different option. So let's get into the news. So I don't have a meme I want to start off with, but it's not a meme, but this is hilarious. It's not a meme, but it is hilarious. So someone wrote on Twitter, why can't the name of Crayola Crayon be called just Black? What the heck? Negro? Question mark, question mark, question mark, question face. I didn't appreciate explaining this to my second grader yesterday. I think I will start a petition to buy no-name brand crayons. Okay, so then Crayola said, we are grateful for the opportunity to respond. Crayola offers multiple languages on some products to help children learn. Negro, pronounced negro, is the appropriate word a Spanish-speaking child would use for the color black. We hope this is helpful. So that's hilarious. And someone in the comments actually wrote, on Twitter, I was reading people's responses to it, and someone said, Crayola did a good response, but they should have said, this is why we make our crayons non-toxic. So that was hilarious. Good explanation / clapback from Crayola, but people are just so desperate for racism to be absolutely everywhere that they are so self-absorbed in their own feelings. I wonder what that conversation was that parent had with their child, explaining, I don't know, the white supremacy behind Crayola, behind crayons and the colors. I wish I could have heard that. But it is ridiculous. Negro means black in Spanish. It looks like Negro, but it is Negro. I don't really speak Spanish, but gosh, I know that. And so did you go back? I hope this parent went back and explained colors and that there's people who speak different languages to their second grader, and didn't just leave it at, for 400 years, we've had to fight. And now Crayola. For those of you who just jumping in, this is the thing I'm talking about. Someone upset at Crayola because Negro, they just read it as Negro, and they had to explain it to their second grader because they're so in their feels about this. They're so in their feels. So I don't know what to do with this world right now. Everything is so stupid. And at least I got something to laugh at, because I'm a bit frustrated with the state of things right now. So at least there's always leftist nonsense to mock aggressively. And kudos to Crayola for responding. Who knows? Crayola might always have to start taking Spanish off the crayons. Um, but that would also be like, I guess, that would put Spanish-speaking children at a disadvantage. So what's the solution here? Just telling them to learn English? uh, that just seems like our hierarchy of oppression, our oppression Olympics. Everything is just colliding into each other. So it's hilarious. So I hope you got a good laugh out of that. So we know that on Saturday was September 11th, the anniversary, 20-year anniversary. I decided to go to a local memorial ceremony in Oakland County. There's a memorial where they celebrate or honor for all first responders. So they have a big wall with a list of names who have died on duty, and they have a statue that has like a firefighter, and I believe a police officer all like together, and then they also have things that are 9/11 monuments. So it's a really nice memorial. I didn't realize it was all privately funded until they mentioned it at the ceremony, and that my local Sheriff Bouchard, that's like his baby. And so kudos to the people who donated hundreds of thousands of dollars to put it together. And it's a really nice tribute, and it was heartbreaking. I didn't really know anyone there besides like the sheriff. So I was just kind of sitting there alone, just absorbing it, trying to just be there like as a supportive community member. But there's people wearing like the Back the Blue stuff and just sobbing about losing people they've worked with, friends, family members, while they give their lives on the line of duty. And they've been demonized so much, especially last year. And Sheriff Bouchard did make a call to action to police. We got to stop the demonization of the police. And I agree, because I want them to come when I call. So please stop it. There's some corrupt departments. Sure, there's some corrupt people in there, and some of them may be racist. But a lot of the big cases that people even claim are out of racism wasn't even like any evidence in the cases that they tried to prosecute, and it became like huge national stories. So you got to be careful about how people try to manipulate you. People can make a ton of emotional cases on things. And if you're not armed with facts, and people think that Ben Shapiro's facts don't care about your feelings is really crass, but if you don't consider the facts, people will take advantage of you. And I've used the example a lot of like the border crisis, which Biden totally screwed up, but a lot of people voted for Biden because they didn't like what Trump did about the border, especially like even a lot of like those Biden evangelical Christians. Like Allie Stuckley said she knew a lot of people who that was like their determining reason, even though Biden was there when Obama built those cages. It doesn't make any sense. But I realized how people lacked information when there was the debate night and Trump mentioned coyotes bringing people over. And people were like, coyotes? How are animals going to bring whole children over? And it's like, okay, it's one thing if you don't, but people started to mock Trump. So it's one thing if you don't know things, but to confidently not know things and think that you know them is astounding. Not an ounce of humility while you make a darn fool out of yourself. And yet you're so emotionally invested in something, yet know nothing about it. Nothing about it. And I see a lot of that with the abortion debate, which I'm going to end this episode talking about it, because I want to talk about some well, it is relevant to the times. I specifically want to talk about people's reactions. I'm seeing, for those of you who don't know, I had a video that went pretty viral. It got over 1 million views on TikTok, dealing with abortion after the Texas heartbeat bill went into effect. And so a lot of people that I'm going back and forth with, granted TikTok is an app with a lot of young people on it. A lot of them probably feel like we older people are, I don't know, invading their territory. But it's fun. I like the app. And so many people have really bad arguments. And when they're really, really bad, the first thing I do is look at their profiles. And I see their ages. And I'm never surprised when I guess someone's age and they're 15 to 23. And to me, that's sad because I don't feel like I was stupid 15 to 23. But this is anecdotal. This is a generalization, but I'm pretty much always right when I'm guessing, when I'm trying to confirm someone's age. And a lot of people who say really ridiculous things are white young women who are allies or whatever, and they'll say things like, "This is gonna hurt minorities," and I'm just like, you realize you're arguing for eugenics, and then they'll say things like, you realize it's going to create more poverty. And I'm like, poor people deserve to live. So that particular argument for abortion really weirds me out. And I will talk about that toward the end. That's what I was reflecting on a lot on my way here to the studio, because I just read a couple comments that people had, and I'm just like, what is wrong with you people? You think so little of minorities that you're trying to help. You're trying to help, but you think so little of us. And it's they don't realize they're making like a eugenics argument, but I'm gonna break it down. I'm gonna break that down. But anyway, they're so emotional about the abortion debate, and people have given them the talking points, and they'll march, they'll go out and they'll march, and they'll say these slogans, these mottos like "my body, my that doesn't mean anything because it's not your body. There's another one involved, and they'll say it's a clump of cells. It doesn't mean anything. You're a clump of cells. Like it doesn't. They'll say it's not alive. It doesn't feel. Like at what stage are you saying that it doesn't feel or function? Like you don't even understand like the biology. Like at what, like if you look at a chart of the developing fetus, like at what point do you think that it's okay to kill it? And at what point do you think the development is happening? And the point is that it's developing, and in 9 months it'll be a normal human being. So why do you think there should be a cutoff when you know what's going to happen in 9 months? So there's just a lot of things people haven't thought through because they've been so engaged and hyped up in the politics of it, and they're very emotional about it, but they don't understand the facts. Like people try to say that pro-life people are arguing. I don't know how widespread this is, but someone tried to make an argument that I argued back with, that pro-life people are just trying to trick people with an emotional argument. I'm like, no, mine is scientific and mine is rights-based. There are emotions on it because I do think it's immoral, sure. But there's other factors at play that are on my side. Like you guys, all your arguments are all evolving based on the circumstances of whatever the individual decides, individual whims. So, and you'll use like worst case scenario to try to justify every single one. Every single one. While dodging reality. Jen Psaki won't answer if Joe Biden thinks that a fetus is human at 15 weeks. It's human? It's obviously human. Obviously human. So anyway, I don't want to get too off track. I know I just talked about it for a little while, but that's what I'm going to close on. Right now, I want to talk about Larry Elder in California. So I think they are scared. We will see what happens. We are, what day is it? Gosh, tomorrow's the last day, I think, because the official election date is 14th. So we're approaching the end. So people are concerned because they've gone to election places for the polling, and they've been told that they have voted.
Court and Rick, this is quite a story. Good question. What is going on? We spoke with several concerned voters here in the West San Fernando Valley who believe something wonky had been going on at places like El Camino Real Charter High School in Woodland Hills. This place opened up as an early polling location, open 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. daily, but several people tell us they showed up to vote this morning in the special California governor recall election and were told that computers showed they had already cast their ballots. So what? Staffers, they say, were apologetic and helpful, but those voters we talked to are extremely concerned, suspicious, and wanting answers. California native and current West Hills resident, 88-year-old Estelle Bender, spoke with us just a short time ago. What happened today and how shocked are you?
Very. I went to El Camino High School to vote, got there at 10:30, gave her this, and she scanned it and said, "You voted." And I said, "No, I haven't." And she said, "This has been happening all morning." The man next to me was arguing the same thing. So as I left, I did the provisional ballot and left. I was just really angry, and I saw two women walking toward me as I left, and I said, "Don't be surprised if they tell you you've already voted." And she said, "They've already done that." If I voted, how did I vote?
And who did you vote for?
Well, I asked the couple, the young women that I talked to, and I said, "Are you by any chance Republicans?" She said, "Yes." And I said, "Well, so am I. And so are the two friends that had the problem at VFW." So.
Makes you suspicious.
I would think so. And still, I'd like to know how I voted.
All right, take a look. The LA County Registrar's Office released a statement tonight following our inquiries. A spokesman says the voters who experienced this issue were offered and provided a provisional ballot.
So that's suspicious. That's suspicious. And so whether that is a innocent glitch or whether that is a malicious thing that happened, that is unacceptable. That is really unacceptable, especially if you consider all the weird things or things that made people unhappy, whether it was during the 2020 election, whether it was a issue with a lack of transparency while they're blocking windows and stuff in Detroit, or people, you know, or other kind of things that people said that happened. We should be running elections as flawlessly as possible, and people come to go vote and say, "Oh, you already voted." That's an issue. I mean, I would like if people, I don't even like early voting. I believe people should be able to vote absentee. I don't think absentee, just mailing it to your house. No, I think you should, if you're elderly or something, or you're going to be out of town, you can make arrangements or whatever to get your to vote absentee. But I don't like the mail-in stuff. I don't like 2 weeks to vote or whatever. I like it's election day, you go vote, and I think you should fill out on the Scantron thing and put it in the machine and count it. That's my ideal way to run elections. I've said some piece before about why I don't like early voting. Mostly because I think it's well, obviously if you're running a national election, you've raised funds and you have an operation that can deal with that sort of thing. But if you are a small time sort of politician running kind of a shoestring budget, trying to run on the issues, and maybe someone's outspending you 10-1, having an election day that's like not a day, but like 14 days or something like that, that is, and you people have different operations and stuff at different polling locations, that's very expensive, and I think that's pricing you out of the shot that you probably deserve. So I don't like, we have an election day. We have an election day. I'm open to an argument against that point, Which I guess the argument would be that it's important that people vote and people need to be able to go do that. But just open up more polling locations. I don't like multi-day vote, but this is unacceptable. Absolutely unacceptable. And there can be issues and problems with machines always. But that is crazy. That is crazy. Someone was asking me about what we should do about going forward with election integrity, and I said, well, we need to focus going forward on what we can do. If everyone just believes that people are just so gung-ho or hung up on 2020, then you're not going to get any sort of, I mean, people don't want to do a bipartisan thing anyway, but if they think they're going to point to, you just want Trump to come back in office instead of just trying to do the right thing going forward, then that's going to be a problem. But I think we should have, elections should be easy to check. Just to make sure that there aren't issues. And you should be able to look at issues that happen in particular counties without the whole world coming down on you, calling you racist, like what happens in like Wayne County. And as a matter of fact, is why they've been able to run such poor elections for a long time. Just a little inside baseball right there. Because people are afraid of what kind of backlash will happen if people start calling you racist and stuff. When the truth is it's a systemic problem. It's not a 2020 problem. It's not It happened in 2016 and before that. They had issues during the primaries in 2020. So it's a long-standing issue. And so we got to get better about election integrity. But obviously this is a recall that is very important. And you have the governor versus he's being recalled versus a black conservative commentator who is well hated by the establishment, obviously. There's been some crazy stuff that has happened with Larry Elder. People attacked him last week, a woman in a gorilla mask, and the LA Times reported it and had a picture of his hand just kind of over a woman's face. I showed it last week, and they're like, skirmish, they're investigating this event after a skirmish happened involving Larry Elder. I'm paraphrasing the headline, but it looked like between the photo and the headline, if you're not going to read the actual article, which a lot of people don't, it looks like they're accusing Larry Elder of being behind the skirmish rather than saying, hey, woman in a monkey mask attacks the potential first black governor of California. So they've been really dirty on a lot of things. There's this video clip I want to play of a white woman talking about how he's dangerous for people of color.
You've been such an outspoken critic of Elder. He's well known to right-wing radio listeners as a host for decades, but then he has sparred with the media that's been covering the campaign. He's clearly the leading contender among the Republicans in this recall. So do you think he was able to get around the media and reach voters in California? Was he able to run a Trump playbook in the state?
I mean, kind of. He's essentially been running his campaign on Fox News and on right-wing media outlets. He's refused to talk to large, to nonpartisan and media outlets and to journalists who are critical of him. Has refused to answer difficult questions. Often uses the few interviews that he does give as an opportunity to give a performance on social media. Denouncing those journalists and playing the victim. But he has been able to reach the minority of voters in California who embrace his white supremacist worldview. And he's co-opted this line by my fellow columnist from the headline, calling him the blackface of white supremacy, but he refuses to engage with the actual substance of our reporting, the idea that his views were shaped by a well-known white supremacist named Jared Taylor, who he repeatedly quoted in early writings, that he plans to reverse all of the state's progress on immigrant rights and racial justice, and that he poses a very real threat to communities of color for all of the reasons that we've reported it in the past.
Clearly, the LA Times opinion folks, you and others have been very much against Elder. We will see what impact, if any, that has had in 2 days.
So I read that article calling him the blackface of white supremacy. It was a trash opinion piece. And she said, well, he refuses to look at our valid criticism. They don't have valid criticism. They have smear pieces, including calling them the blackface of white supremacy. That is the most disrespectful, racist garbage that I've seen in a very long time. And it's disgraceful that CNN would let that go on. But of course, CNN is disgraceful, and they've acted disgraceful for a long time, especially Brian Stelter on his channel. And then that woman to go on and to push that, to say such terrible things about Larry Elder. I've read their criticisms, and to say that he's only running on Fox News, that's not true. I've seen several interviews with him on local TV. I saw a long form interview where he was talking to several news media, and they were not kind to him, and he answered difficult questions. When they say performative is just because he can answer well and not have to tap dance to your agenda, but can make valid points and dunk on you folks. Because that's what their problem is. They don't like him. He doesn't share their ideologies, and he's not a harm to minority California and their liberal agendas, like getting rid of different standards in schools, or not wanting to count Asians as white kids because their scores are too good and it messes up how they want to count scores. They're a plague. Their ideology is a plague. Larry Elder is someone who believes that you can take your own destiny into your own hands and do your own thing, and the government shouldn't be interfering with you every little second of the day. That is Larry Elder's position on life. They've smeared him and said he's anti-woman, that he doesn't think women are smart, but they've smeared him in all sorts of ways that have been debunked, and it's insane. And now people are showing up at the polling places and saying, when they want to vote for Larry Elder, the machines say, you already voted. There's a plot afoot. There's a plot afoot. I've been following Larry Elder for a minute, and I'm not going to say 4 years. Well, I guess it's been a few years, I guess. But he makes a pretty darn good case, so that's why they have to smear him. But he's definitely had interviews with people besides Fox News. I don't even know how many times he's popped up on Fox News. But when you write stupid articles like he's a black face of white supremacy, when you write dumb articles like that, they want him to come on Fox News to comment about dumb articles like that. So the more you point it out, the more that a network like Fox News is going to want to talk about that headline. And I want to talk about that headline. And other people want to talk about that headline. When there's people who attack him in a monkey mask, and LA Times tries to frame it with their headline and the pictures and make it look like he's slapping a woman rather than the reality of men and women attacking him and his people, we want to talk about how dishonest you are. Like, well, he won't address our valid criticism. You don't have valid criticisms. I read that stupid piece, and it was stupid and racist. And I don't care if the person who wrote that piece was black. It was a racist article. LA Times is racist. And they should be ashamed that they even put that title up. But they don't care because they're so bound by their ideology that they could dare to say something so ridiculous and then to go on CNN and to repeat something so ridiculous. It's amazing. And why won't he won't even come and talk to us? He's only going on Fox. It's not even true, but like, why would he when you called him the black face of white supremacy? I was having a conversation about Trump and how some people were talking about how he didn't go to the ceremony with Bush and Biden and Obama, and I don't know what the context of that, but someone snapped a photo. I think it was Getty who snapped this photo of him pulling down a mask and yelling, and it's just it's just amazing that they capture that. And so I heard people saying, oh, Trump's not there. That's so terrible that Trump's not there with all these other people to show unity and stuff. You know what Trump was doing? He was with the people who made it all happen. He was with some first responders. So He did his own thing. And they appreciated it. And I thought it was cool. Not that what the other former presidents did wasn't good. But he went and he did his own thing and people liked it. People appreciated it. But I said, if I was Trump, I wouldn't be doing nothing with them people. I know it's politics and it's a game or whatever, but you said that you had to be, with Biden, you were telling people that I said go inject themselves with bleach. That we got to save the soul of the nation. As if he's the great Satan. We just not going to be chilling together in the ex-president club. Or ever. If it was me, there's some things you can criticize people on their policies, but they didn't. It wasn't a policy thing. It wasn't as a matter of fact, a lot of stuff that Biden and them tried to say that they were going to do about policy with COVID was stuff that Trump was already doing. And they undermined the vaccine when Trump was president. Now Trump's not the president. Now it's everybody has to take it. Tables have turned. These are some of the most disingenuous people on the planet. And the rest of them can hang out, which my oldest sister keeps saying, people who want to destroy relationships over politics is stupid because they're all friends anyway. They're all hanging out, got similar donors and stuff, lobbying for the same stuff. But you won't talk to your son or your cousin or your sister or your brother because they voted for Trump. That's so stupid. People who break off relationships for politics. It's a career to some people, and some of y'all make it into your God. It's crazy. Absolutely bonkers. They're all hanging out. Bush is handing Michelle candy. They're dancing together, laughing, whatever. And they think people like Trump and people who vote like Trump or think like Trump are all, but I don't want to say they all think they're underneath them, but but there is an air of elitism there. There is an air of elitism for sure, but Biden is driving division for sure, certainly, blatantly lying to the American people, lying on the American people, turning them against one another, and he made Trump the face. They made Trump like the face of white supremacy. So I wouldn't be hanging out with these folks if I was Trump. If I could ever avoid it, I'm sure there's got to be a national thing where they would want all the ex-presidents to be at, for sure. But if I could dodge him, I would, because I'm just not hanging out with you. There's some things you don't do. There's some things you don't do, and they went too far. And I'm not smiling in your face it was just politics. It was just politics when you call me a white supremacist. No. You can apologize. But what does it matter? What does your apology matter when you're the president and I'm not? You got what you want. No, we gonna be petty for life. So I understand Trump not hanging out with this and Trump hanging out with these folks. I totally get it. Totally understand that. Totally understand that. And in the case of Larry Elder, why would you just want to subject yourself to LA Times, who said such ridiculously awful things? Why won't you let us abuse you? They sound stupid. They sound stupid, and if California decides to keep Gavin Newsom and it's all legit election and they don't vote to recall and they want to keep him, that's on California. That's their crazy state. You get what you deserve, I guess. And if you want to keep someone who would impose all of these lockdowns and mandates and rules on you and pass all this stupid legislation and make it so that people want to desperately leave California, if that's the kind of person that you guys want to keep, then that's the person you guys deserve. But if you want to just say, hey, maybe I don't like this other guy, but at least, my destiny is going to be in my own hands. If he's in charge, that's obviously a smarter choice. By the way, Rose McGowan, she did an interview, not an interview, a press conference, because she claims that Newsom's wife reached out to her trying to stop her from coming forward with Harvey Weinstein when all that stuff was going down. So Newsom denies it. McGowan produced some proof that she said was proof, but to me it doesn't look like, I'm not going to say it's fake or anything, but I don't know how you validate the evidence that she produced. Can I believe it? Yeah. Do I think the timing is suspicious? Sure, but a lot of people bring out stuff in the 11th hour. But she has been going at these people for a while, and she said in her press conference, she said she's voting for Elder, or so is supporting Elder, and she said, I don't agree with everything that he does, but he's the better candidate, sure. And so I hope other people are honest and relate to that, whether she moved the needle on what her accusation was, or just the facts of how California's been run. But ultimately, it's California's decision. And hopefully that was a glitch with the voting machines. That is an unacceptable glitch. But if there is like a mass problem, we're going to see some contested stuff. I don't see Larry Elder doing unless there's like some hardcore proof, I don't foresee Larry Elder pushing, fighting for questioning the election results. And we'll see what happens. There's not much time left on that. Okay, moving on. So the last thing that happened with Afghanistan, back up. So after there was the bombing at the airport, which cost the lives of 13 service members, people wanted answers, some kind of remark from the president, obviously, because this was a tragedy, and most people that I hear was okay with pulling out, thought we'd been there too long, 20 years, and but they just didn't obviously like how it happened, the order of things, because obviously you should get people out before you start pulling out the military. You don't pull out the military first. It caused a lot of issues. And so Biden went on and he's like, the buck stops with me, but it's everybody else's fault but mine. But he did say, and before I listened to the press conference, because I was listening on the radio because I was in the car, I said, if he does not say we're going after these people, he's just like done. And so he did say we will hunt these people down. But at the same time, while you are retreating, you don't really look like you have a position of strength. So people didn't think that he really had convictions with that. So then not too long after that, they launched a strike, which they believed that another attack was imminent, and they wanted to go after ISIS-K. And so we heard that there was a bombing. And so, I don't know, I had a gut feeling about, I guess, something not being right about it, and I don't want to say it was biased, but as more information came out, it looked like they really hit civilians. And so then the Pentagon started saying, the Biden administration started saying that, well, there was a secondary explosion, and that's what killed a lot of the civilians, and that the secondary explosion was from bombs in the car. That does not appear to be true at all. So the New York Times, and I know we don't all love the New York Times, but they did some pretty good reporting, and they followed the drone strike and the civilians who were killed at the time of the bombing. So they put out like a 10-minute video. They did do an article. The article that they wrote, you have to be subscribed to the New York Times, but they did do a video. I'm going to play a little bit of the video, but you can go watch it on YouTube. But they did some good reporting, and the U.S. did a bad thing.
In one of the final acts of its 20-year war in Afghanistan, the United States fired a missile from a drone at a car in Kabul. It was parked in the courtyard of a home, and the explosion killed 10 people, including 43-year-old Zamarai Ahmadi and 7 children, according to his family. The Pentagon claimed that Ahmadi was a facilitator for the Islamic State and that his car was packed with explosives, posing an imminent threat to U.S. troops guarding the evacuation at the Kabul airport.
The procedures were correctly followed, and it was a righteous strike.
What the military apparently didn't know was that Ahmadi was a longtime aid worker who colleagues and family members said spent the hours before he died running office errands and ended his day by pulling up to his house. Soon after, his Toyota was hit with a 20-pound Hellfire missile. What was interpreted as the suspicious moves of a terrorist may have just been an average day in his life. And it's possible that what the military saw Ahmadi loading into his car were water canisters he was bringing home to his family, not explosives. Using never-before-seen security camera footage of Ahmadi, interviews with his family, co-workers, and witnesses, we will piece together for the first time his movements in the hours before he was killed.
So they did a good job. I mean, they went to his job and looked at timestamps of videos that they had and correlated with what the military and stuff was saying, and they made it looks like they made a mistake and lied through their teeth about it, by the way. Lied through their teeth about it. Because they were asked about the secondary explosions. They're like, well, what makes you, can you say what makes you believe that happened? And they're like, no, we can't say that. I think it was Kirby who said that. So, just, can you imagine just going about your day? You do like humanitarian stuff. You bring people food so they can eat. You're driving around your coworkers to different places in the company car. And then you have canisters that you loaded up in your car because you know that your village has a water shortage. So you want to make sure that you can bring home some water for your family and other people who need it. And the military is like, ooh, that's something there. And you load in you go inside your place of business so you can get some water. You bring it home. And then the military is like, by gosh, darn it, that's when we need to strike. And then they are like, well, there are bombs in his car. That's why everyone's dead. No, that's not what happened. So they did a really good report on it. Here's a little bit more of it.
A U.S. official told us that the strike on Ahmadi's car was conducted by an MQ-9 Reaper drone that fired a single Hellfire missile with a 20-pound warhead. We found remnants of the missile, which experts said matched a Hellfire at the scene of the attack. In the days after the attack, the Pentagon repeatedly claimed that the missile strike set off other explosions, and that these likely killed the civilians in the courtyard.
Significant secondary explosions from the targeted vehicle indicated the presence of a substantial amount of explosive material.
Because there were secondary explosions, there's a reasonable conclusion to be made that there was explosives in that vehicle.
But a senior military official later told us that it was only possible to probable that explosives in the car caused another blast. We gathered photos and videos of the scene taken by journalists and visited the courtyard multiple times. We shared the evidence with 3 weapons experts who said the damage was consistent with the impact of a Hellfire missile. They pointed to the small crater beneath Ahmadi's car and the damage from the metal fragments of the warhead. This plastic melted as a result of a car fire triggered by the missile strike. All 3 experts also pointed out what was missing: any evidence of the large secondary explosions described by the Pentagon. No collapsed or blown out walls, including next to the trunk with the alleged explosives. No sign that a second car parked in the courtyard was overturned by a large blast. No destroyed vegetation. All of this matches what eyewitnesses told us, that a single missile exploded and triggered a large fire. There is one final detail visible in the wreckage: containers, identical to the ones that Ahmadi and his colleague filled with water and loaded into his trunk before heading home. Even though the military said the drone team watched the car for 8 hours that day, a senior official also said they weren't aware of any water containers.
So Ahmadi, his FYI, his employer was put on and paperwork trying to get him refugee status so him and his family could come to America. So they were looking to the U.S. as that bright beacon of hope. And like the last thing we did in our 20-year war was launch a Hellfire missile at a guy just trying to bring home water for his family, who was not a part of ISIS. But I don't know why they felt like they had to act so fast and so foolishly. Did Biden just really want a win? Did they, or whoever want a win after the 13 servicemen were killed, men and women were killed? It's a terrible thing to think and to assume and to allege. But obviously this information was bad that they had. And that Biden doesn't believe, he had an interview, it was an interview, I think he said on a campaign trail, while he was running for president, and said he didn't really think we needed standing armies and stuff. It was like, but when you don't have people on the ground getting good intel, this is how you get a bunch of civilians who are going to die like that. And there was like later other ISIS, they said at the end of the report that there was like ISIS that did something in a white Toyota. So there was like concern somewhere else, but you targeted the wrong guy, just doing everyday normal things that he would do for his coworkers, for his family, for his friends. And like I said, he was just trying to bring home water for his family. And we shot a missile at him. And it killed him, and it killed kids. And then they later lied and blame it on it. They said there's no evidence. The experts said there's no evidence of a secondary explosion from bombs in his car. So unless they can come out and say, oh, we scooped all that up. But how you can't scoop up the evidence? Like, I mean, you can, if there was evidence of the bombs, you could take the bombs, but there's no evidence that there was a secondary explosion that went off at all. So why would they say that? Why would they pin that legacy on this man and try to, after he's dead and you've killed civilians, you've killed kids, you allege that he's a terrorist, and that's your story, and you're going to try to stick to it, which in the long run doesn't make sense because the New York Times figured it out. And maybe their reporting is wrong. But they pieced together a pretty convincing case. They did some real journalism. They did some real darn journalism. So kudos to the New York Times, who I don't always love. But it's a shame. I know quite a few people who had a rough September 11th, knowing just how it all ended, how he pulled out, how basically it was a shameful retreat. Biden said it wasn't going to be like Saigon, but totally was. But I suppose it was worse. Suppose it was worse. And this darn old fool, after we lost 13 service members, couldn't stop even looking at his watch, which really upset the families. And the media tried to cover for, by the way, with fact-checking. And it's like, dude, we can see he's looking at his watch. And then other people confirmed. And then they, like, rated it to, like, changed it to just missing context. It's like, what is the context? The context is you don't want it to be true? That's the context? That's the context. So, if you know friends or family who are upset, who because I knew people who were saying a bunch of things like this it's really hard because of how we just left things. Just if you did serve, I appreciate your service. There's a lot of people who got to experience freedom that wouldn't have otherwise, and some of those people are left behind, and that is tragic that they are now under the Taliban. But I hope there are other people willing to take up that fight and still let that bit of freedom and liberty that we had there, that we were trying to spark, and that the people will rise up and try to do something. But it is unfortunate that we left equipment there, because people say that even having those helicopters is going to widely change the dynamic of things. So perhaps the world is a little more dangerous than where we left it 20 years ago, especially when we have someone like Biden at the helm. So I'm sorry. I'm sorry that just got depressing and dark. I don't know how to clean it up. It's we have a commander in chief who cannot lead, and I know there's some Republicans who are pushing 25th Amendment, who are talking about impeachment, but there's nothing in serious leadership that's happening right now. So I think one reason why they announced the mandates is so we're talking about mandates rather than what happened in Afghanistan. So I wanted to make sure that today I did prioritize and mention this story because, I mean, the mask thing and the mandates for the vaccines is important. And by the way, I just want to announce that one of my sister's longtime friends, who's a Democrat, wrote that she doesn't agree with Republicans on everything, and she didn't say she's joining the Republican Party, but she said she can't rock with Democrats anymore because at the end of the day, them trying to control her body with the vaccine is too much. It's just absolutely too much. And they keep trying to make it seem like the people who are unvaxxed are just a bunch of hillbilly Trump supporters, and that's not true. I know plenty of people who voted for Trump. Maybe they're not diehards or they're Republican and they got the vaccine. I know plenty of people who really like Trump and got the vaccine. And Trump got the vaccine, FYI. So they say. But Trump got the vaccine. But the truth is that there's a lot of minorities, especially black people, who did not get the vaccine and won't get the vaccine. And those aren't necessarily Trump supporters. Now, if you look at the numbers, there's people who don't trust it. And the more that you push, they're certainly not going to trust it. And the way that if they keep framing it like you have to get it to protect the people who are vaccinated, rather than saying this is the best thing that you can do for yourself, as long as you keep trying to push division like that you're not going to convince them, but you are going to hopefully push other people into being like, you know what, I am vaccinated, but this is too far, and we got to fight for liberty. And people are really trying to make the case that and say crazy things like, well, you not wanting to take the vaccine isn't more important than my right to not get sick. Where is that in the Constitution? Where is your right to not get sick, to never suffer, to never die? Where is that in the Constitution? Because we all make risk assessments and then decide how we're going to live our lives. But at the same time, we have a really big argument in the country about right to life, and people mad about the abortion, the ban with the heartbeat ban in Texas. So we are living in a bonkers time. Totally bonkers time. But people are saying, on a positive note, one thing that Joe Biden is doing is making more conservatives. So I think there's some truth to that. But if Republicans are cowards who don't want to take advantage of it, people are just going to be floating in the wind, and then they may revert to whatever way. So we got to come with a convincing argument, and the argument has to be beyond we like Trump. Trump's coming back or something. You know, you got to have. We are beyond one man. So Republicans have to. If people have fatigue because of the oppressive nature of the Democrats, Republicans have to have a plan to scoop those people up. And it can't just be, and those people aren't necessarily going to like Trump either. So you have to make a brand for the party beyond that. You just do. And that comes from someone who voted for him twice and liked him and defended him a lot. So last thing I want to talk about to close out the show is this particular take on the abortion issue that is really dear to me. I guess the argument that really creeps me out. So again, for those of you who don't know, I had a video on TikTok that went pretty viral. It got 1 million views on it, and it was regarding the Texas heartbeat ban. So I've been arguing a lot with people over the past 2 weeks, and a lot of those people are young, which there's an app with a lot of young people on it. That's how TikTok is, but there are older people. But usually when I see arguments and they're really, really bad, the first thing I do is go to the profile and I'll look at the people posting it and I'll see how young they are. Sometimes they put their age on there, 15, 17, whatever. Usually if it's between like 15 to 23, the opinions are really bad. And I don't want to be ageist like that because I feel like I was a pretty smart kid at those age groups, but I don't know, I was always a facts don't care about your feeling kind of person. And these people are so gung-ho on spewing their mottos rather than thinking things through. And so not too long ago, I was at home and someone had left a comment on my video, and they kind of did a thread of their talking points, and they said that, you know, basically minorities need this. This is going to hurt minorities if they can't have the access to the abortions, and this is going to cause more poverty in the world. So this is not a new opinion. Other people have been saying that from the beginning. Biden has made that case. Cori Bush has made that case very early on, which I pointed out that this is a eugenics talking point, because you're basically making the argument that it's a bad thing that more minorities won't be killing their children. And then other people are going far enough to say, well, if these people survive, then these kids are going to live through poverty and all kinds of things. Some people allege that these people will live through abuse and all kinds of other stuff. So I don't know why there's so much assumptions going out, because there's rich white kids who are abused. So I don't know why you're so gung-ho thinking that people who are in poverty are going to get abused. And there, I guess there's women, maybe they're thinking about women who are in abusive situations and want to get abortions to spare their children from that. But that's also very problematic, because obviously there's an air of coercion there. I'm not saying it quite right, but you know I'm talking about, like there's some force there of why a woman would want to have an abortion in that situation, because there's abuse. So we don't need to make cover for men like that who would treat women so poorly, that they would want to think that that's their best option. This is a really abusive industry to women, and it's crazy to me that women are tricked into thinking that it's so empowering, especially young people who aren't thinking things through. They say the craziest, darndest things, I've already said this, like, my body, my choice. Obviously, there's another body. They'll say it's just a clump of cells. You're a clump of cells. I've heard people say it's a clump of dead cells. I'm like, what? No. People arguing about the word fetus as if fetus doesn't mean unborn baby. And they're like, see, but it says unborn. I'm like, unborn just means not born. It doesn't mean not baby. Like, what's wrong with you? People who... Like, some of these people, like, did you pass biology? Were you old enough to have biology yet? Just the craziest arguments. But this girl who said the comment about this will create more poor people, I looked, according to her profile, like, picture, this is a young white woman, and I look on her page, and she's like, you know, LGBT, all this other kind of, like, ally kind of stuff. Typical kind of progressive looking page. And so I commented to her and said, you people think so little of minorities that it's just disgusting. And I said, we deserve to live. And so I really dislike basically all abortion arguments. But the one that really pretty much, like I said, weirds me out, creeps me out, is when people start talking about, you need to do it because these kids will live in poverty. And that is a eugenics argument. People push, in the abortion industry, we're eugenicists, and people who are into eugenics wanted, like, a less population. They wanted population control. And they wanted less minorities around. They wanted less dim-witted folks around. They wanted less people who were poor. All right, this is all about population control. And those people, that's what they wanted when they got NARL together, when they got Planned Parenthood together. And we are seeing those arguments today, like, being blasted proudly. And it's weird, and it's creepy, and it's wrong. So one of the most amazing things about it is that life doesn't stay like this. Life doesn't move like this, you know? Some of you watching who may know that there were times my family were hard pressed sometimes. There were times when, we were going out eating at Shenanigans, which doesn't exist anymore. And there were times when my dad was like, okay, everybody, you got $2 Taco Bell options. When they had the $2 value meal. That's what you can get. There were times when we had refrigerators full of food, and there were times when it was scarce. And, one time my youngest sister got up in church and testified, and she said something about there not being a lot of food in the house, and we were just like, oh my gosh, baby Tina can't testify no more. But my dad was mortified, but at the same time, he's like, well, maybe it's good that they know, because the ministry always came first in our house, and we made sacrifices often, and we still often do. But sometimes it got really tight. And there was 2 times we didn't have a home. And I remember I lived in Pontiac, grew up, we lost our home, we ended up moving out to Holly. And it seemed like life was so hard trying to pay for that little trailer park that we lived in. But then time went on, we grew up, opportunities opened up, because life isn't like this. Life goes up, life goes down. You have a dream, sometimes you can achieve them, sometimes you fall flat on your face, and sometimes you get back up again. But some years ago, I was thinking about, I was paying for, a place of my own that was the same amount of money that it seemed so hard to get by on, to get to, so we could just survive. Life moves. It's not like this. So a child coming into this world, into a life of poverty, that is not a death sentence. And poverty is very relative. We don't live in a third world country. I mean, I don't know where you're watching this from, but I don't live in a third world country. And these kids in Texas don't live in a third world country. We have very generous social programs. And besides social programs, you have very charitable people. If people are really desperate, they don't need a butcher at Planned Parenthood. Take them to a pregnancy crisis center. Take them to a church. Take them somewhere where someone will love on them and try to help them. Don't tell them that the best solution, the best option for them is to destroy their baby, which is alive, it's a life, and it's its own life. But besides the fact that it's its own life, it's a part of you. Half of you was used to make that thing. That is your lineage right there. And having an abortion isn't going to make you not a parent. It's just going to make you a parent of someone who has passed away. And in this instance, killed. It's not a fresh start. It's not an annulment. It was killed. And many women face regrets. Some women can face physical harm. I've had a friend who I've had on the show talked about her physical harm from abortion. It's not just a reset button that you get to start a game all over again. So there's really not a lot of consideration to the women, how abortion can harm them, but they're trying to just totally get you to ignore the life that you're wiping out. But no, poverty is not an excuse to go around killing people, like we're watching the Purge movie. As a matter of fact, when one of those films came out, I wrote a status about how I was thinking about how we have a real life purge that happens every day in America. So poverty is not a good excuse to wipe out folks. It's not, because life moves. Some years ago, my oldest sister, she was a security guard at a GM plant. And we were in church, and my dad started praying over her, and he said, I see you. And I don't know if any of you are watching or religious, but he started prophesying to her. He said, I see you being able to, there's going to come a day when you're going to be flying around the country meeting dignitaries and royalty and doing all kinds of stuff. And my second youngest sister, Angelina, just kind of thought to herself, like, Gina is a security guard. How is she going to be doing any of that? And you know what? Not too long after that, it was a couple years, but it wasn't too far down the line. She got into politics. first working at the Detroit office, and that was her job, to like manage the office. And then she got into like field work, and then she became, she was over the county, several different counties. She was over Macomb, Oakland, and Wayne. And then she ended up getting a job at the RNC, and then she became the director of women engagement and urban engagement. And she was doing the thing that my dad said that she was going to do, when it seemed impossible, looking at her circumstances as a security guard at GM. Her life changed dramatically within a couple of years. Your life can dramatically change by putting out a viral video on YouTube or Facebook or TikTok. We live in the greatest country in the world. And she ran for party chair a couple years ago, and she said in a line, and the people she ran against, they tried to use our past, our financial hardship, as a way to embarrass her and push her out the race, but it just became part of her stump speech, which a lot of people appreciated, by the way. And she said, even though I was homeless, I was never hopeless, because we live in America, United States of America, the greatest country on the planet, and God is my provider. And people always would give it thunderous applause, because it's true. Poverty is not a death sentence, nor should it be. And no matter how hard times would get, we still at least had a lot of love in my home. And I know not everybody gets to have that. So I'm very appreciative of the life that I had, regardless of the hard times. But no matter how hard times may have been, I would never look at like my youngest sibling, Tina, who is so amazing, and say, I wish she wasn't here, because so I could have had more toys. or so we could have had, a little bit more money here and there. I would never do that. So think about someone that you might be wiping from the, from the face of existence. For what? So you could get an Emmy, an Oscar, so you can finish grad school. And that's another thing. People who don't have anything are extraordinarily resourceful. And sometimes people don't have money because they waste it. Let's be for real. But there's, like I said, there's generous programs that we have. I don't know if you've ever cashiered and seen people use their EBT cards and seen all the stuff that they buy, like they're on a game show. Some people get so much stuff that they allow other people to use their cards for their groceries, for things. There's a woman I know who is like using her benefits and her, child support and all that stuff. She's used that to like put her through, like, she's getting a degree in law. There's people who know how to work the system and use this. Like, people are resourceful. People hustle. And just because you look down on them and oh gosh, they're so, who would want a life in poverty? Why would you want to subject them to that? Because they deserve the right to live. And if life is so bad, everyone who's having these debates, these discussions, they've already been born. And not to be so morbid, I guess is the word, but anytime you decide that you don't want to exercise that right to life, you don't have to. But we make a decision every day to live, because life is obviously worth living. Life is obviously worth living. And there's people who came from nothing. There's a comedian, he was on In Living Color and some other things. I can't remember the name of the actor, but he did, my mom just like taped it the other day, a documentary on him, but he said his mother found him in the garbage and she adopted him. A white woman adopted a black child, found in the garbage, and he became a star. We deserve to live. We deserve to live. I don't care what your dumb eugenics argument is. And really, people make these a lot of people are making these arguments not because they're malicious and evil, just because they're ignorant and they're not thinking it through. We don't need your white savior complex to argue why us out of existence. You're not helping anyone. So to these kids who keep coming on my page on TikTok and all these other places to say these dumb arguments, and not just them, to Cori Bush, to President Joe Biden, we deserve to live. We deserve to live. And you may say, well, women deserve to make that choice. We can get into a big discussions about that. Obviously, it's not their body. There's another body, because it's the point of the abortion, to kill that person and to make sure, and then you got to make sure all the remains are out. So there's undoubtedly someone else there. And we can have discussions on that. But people pointing out that people who are in poverty or minorities are going to be especially harmed, as if having your child is harmful. I know so many people who had a child and with dudes they shouldn't have been with. And a friend of mine, they were in a really, really dark place. And this isn't a black woman, this is a white woman. She was in a really, really dark place, doing a lot of bad things, a lot of harm to herself, one way or another. And she just did not care about her life. And she ended up getting pregnant. She said her son saved her life. And she says, there's no exaggeration, her son saved her life because it put a lot of things into perspective about how she should live her life, including leaving the guy who knocked her up. And she said, he was bad if I left him while I was extremely pregnant. But she started getting her life in order. And she ended up meeting someone and marrying them who loved her child like their own and ended up having more. And she has a beautiful family. And I hope she doesn't mind me telling this is a friend from high school. I don't know much more to say right now besides we deserve to live. And I'm so sick and tired of people trying to use this argument. Life happens to people. Bad things will happen to people. Life doesn't move like that. It's a roller coaster. It goes up, it goes down. There's twists and there's turns. There's thrills, and there's times you may very well cry and scream. And there's nothing in the Constitution that's going to prevent you from having those ups or those downs. It just protects your God-given rights, which I believe one of those is a right to life that these children deserve. That's why we're pro-life. We're against abortion because we believe they're entitled to the right to life, period. But you trying to scale someone's value based on their circumstances, especially things they cannot control. Maybe they will live a grand life. Maybe they'll change the world. Maybe they'll be a not so great person. Maybe they will suffer and only know suffering. Who knows? But you don't get to make that determination. Or you shouldn't be able to make that determination. I suppose we do allow people to make that determination, but people try to say that we're the ones trying to be controlling to women into their bodies and so on, but you're out there playing God. And there's people out there justifying it because of their ups and their downs, or possible ups and downs. Their mother could hit the lotto the day after they have the abortion. You never know. Life is a tricky thing. But I know that my life is valuable, and I've enjoyed it, regardless of the ups and the downs. So please stop trying to justify abortion because we don't fit into your dystopian novel fantasy. You can't force everyone to fit into a world that's not going to know suffering. That just doesn't exist. And I honestly don't think you care either, to be frank with you. I think it's just a talking point. one that you haven't thought through very much. But there are people who are legitimately believe in population control who push these things. And those people are evil. I don't think everyone who says these things are evil. I just think you're uninformed and you're not thinking things through. So hopefully this conversation has made you think a little bit harder on the things that you're saying. But shame on Cori Bush, shame on President Joe Biden and other top elected officials who spew this talking point. You're harmful and you're disgusting. And that's how I'm going to close up my show. Thank you guys for joining me today. Please go to blacktnews.com, share my content, share articles that I've written. Please, tell other people about my shows when I go live. Normally go live every day at 3 p.m. Eastern time, barring there's some kind of emergency or it needs to be pushed, but it's usually at 3 p.m. And on Saturdays, we do the Let's TikTok About It at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. Please make sure to check out the store, different merchandise that we have on the store. Please support Black Tea News in this way. Or you can also support by just going to blacktnews.com/donate. And call action, if you enjoy what I do here and you want to see it grow and continue and keep it going, please consider leaving a donation. And please make sure that you're following me on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, all at Black Tea News. And on Twitter, I'm at True Black Tea. Thank you guys so much. God bless you guys, and I'll see you tomorrow.